like to welcome everyone to Steve Tees Off, brought to you by riversidegolf.ca. And without Ken Poirier and his team's support, this podcast we'd not be able to produce it. Once again, riversidegolf.ca, Ken Poirier and his team, check them out. We are very, very fortunate to have as a special guest on Steve Tees Off, Mark Strong, the Executive Director of the PGA of British Columbia. Welcome, Mark.
Thank you very much for having me. Not sure how special this is, but I'm enjoying being here. So yeah, well, thank you.
Of course it is. Of course it is. What I'd like to do, the wonderful thing about doing this is that I get to do things the way I want to do them.
Yeah.
Which means I do watch a lot of podcasts, but a lot of times when there's a podcast and it might be about golf or it might be about, who knows, pick a topic, I don't know who the hell the person's talking to. And I like to do an introduction, and it's not like an interview, but it's just telling me, as well as those people, the few people that listen and watch and subscribe to this, who you are.
Sure.
Okay. Let's just start with that, Mark.
Okay. Well, I'm Mark Strong, Executive Director of the PGA of BC. Been a golf pro for about 20 years. Actually, as I was answering some of the questions for this, I realized I've been in the golf industry about 30 years already as well. But born and raised in BC, kind of moved all around the province growing up, going to school and places like that. Played some other sports, didn't start playing golf until a little later, 16 or thereabouts. Actually, the way I tell the story is we moved to Revelstoke in the start of the summer before my grade 11 year. And, there's a basketball court right next to our house. There was tennis courts nearby. I played both of those sports, but didn't know any kids. And so when I showed up to those places just to kind of play, I was by myself and no one else showed up. So after shooting hoop for a while with no one else around and serving tennis balls back and forth with no one else I brought my dad out and forced him to play tennis with me. And I made him roll his ankle the first rally we had. So that was out. So I said, well, I can go play golf by myself. I don't need to wait for anyone else. The golf course was right there. And my dad had already introduced me to it in Prince Rupert and played a little bit. So that kind of became my summer, distraction activity, so to speak. And, shortly thereafter was working at that golf course as well and playing 1 round a day when I was working and 2 rounds a day when I wasn't, kind of thing. And so had a couple of summers, really, that was kind of my immersion into golf there. Went away to Japan for years, an exchange student right after high school, came back to university at SFU. In my second year there, walked onto the golf team and met a bunch of the other team members the first year. Thought, maybe actually that would be an opportunity. Got to play a few years of varsity golf there, which was pretty cool. And at that same time, started working at Richmond Country Club. Got a job as a shop assistant there. Over the years, became an assistant pro, turned pro while I was there. Then went to the Vancouver Golf Club for 4 years. So under Derek Thornley at Richmond Country Club, starting at his time there was very foundational, for me in the industry and the career, and kind of seeing that could be a path. Got to spend 4 years with Randy Smith at the Vancouver Golf Club, which is very cool as well. Got to have one of the women's opens there under my time. So then had a chance to go back to Richmond Country Club as the head golf professional. Took that opportunity. After a few seasons, became the general manager there as well. Was doing that for about 5.5 years or so. COVID was certainly an interesting operation and year, and nonstop learning going on through that. After that experience, I got to go up to Sagebrush in just outside Merritt and reopen that facility with the guy I'll call the patron saint of Sagebrush, Neil Pilon, who kind of kept that place alive when no one else was. And so it's got the chance that it has now to keep going. And that was, a very interesting and eye-opening experience as well. But then had an opportunity to, I've been involved with our association for quite a while as a director, volunteer, going back. And so had an opportunity to take on the executive director role and tried for that and I'm enjoying it. Yeah, very much.
How long have you been in that position for, Mark?
Almost 3 years. So we'll get to, end of this month is 3 years.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, perfect. That will allow us an excellent segue into what the PGA of British Columbia does with the organization, a little bit about the history of it.
Yeah, and it's funny. It seems like a very simple, straightforward question, but we actually get a lot of confusion all the time about PGA. I mean, those 3 letters obviously have a deep embedment in golf, but some people in the general public still assume we are a tour, or that we are affiliated with the PGA Tour. Of course, that's not the case, but we represent all the working golf professionals in British Columbia. So we've got about 800 members in total. They're the ones who are working at your driving ranges, your golf courses, your private clubs, your simulator studios nowadays, and all those facilities who we put on their professional development, their training, education, put on competitions for them, other networking opportunities. But then also put out, community initiatives. This is an area where we're growing pretty regularly. Every year we're adding more and more. Just as being a good community citizen, that's kind of what we should be doing with the sport of golf. But it's also very important for us to give value back to our own members, showing off what they do in the community and how much value they're adding back. We want to tell that story and just make sure that they get some.
Is the funding to keep you guys going, is it all member generated or is it?
Yeah. So, either we're member funded, not for profit society.
Okay.
So they come from either our members or sponsors.
Okay.
Sponsors and partners.
Okay.
Yeah.
And you also put on, like, first of all, I want to get back to become a BC PGA member. What's the criteria?
Sure. So you become a PGA of Canada member. So we are a national association. We're one of the worldwide PGAs. And then you kind of get allocated, so to speak, to whichever zone or region you live in. So BC, being one of them. There's several things that you do to join initially. And then there's a bunch of stuff you have to do in your first number of years to kind of keep yourself going. So there's a bunch of education requirements in terms of high school education, taking the rules of golf, a few other kind of minor check boxes like that. One of those check boxes we just did actually was a playing ability test. So that's one that I know actually gives a lot of people some anxiety and stuff like that, especially with kind of stories.
That was the question I was going to. Do you have to? There's a bar on the playing side?
There is, yeah.
Okay.
And it's evolved over the years. It's changed in terms of the score itself and even how that's kind of offered. People of my generation remember a day where you had one shot at it, and if you didn't shoot those scores over 2 days, you were waiting another year, 365 to try it again. I'll say luckily it's not that way anymore. It's a little more reasonable in terms of the number of we put on 5 specific PATs each year, but you can also use other tournaments and stuff like that too.
So what's the number?
Show off. It depends on the course rating exactly. Yeah, but for an average setup it might be 78.
Okay.
Depending on difficulty length and all that kind of stuff.
Okay.
For men under 50. For men over 50, they usually get 2 extra shots. Women as well run off a separate rating, probably in the 82 range or 84 if they're senior.
Is that kind of universal across Canada, or is that
across Canada? It is universal. Yeah, based off the course rating there. Other worldwide PGAs have different ways of conducting their own play.
See, that is there's the point. It's interesting that you brought that up because there's a point of confusion whenever you say PGA. You go, well, automatically if you're a PGA member, you go, must be lights out, like phenomenal. Right.
And could be.
It could be too. That's right. But even in the U.S., when you say, okay, the PGA, the Professional Golf Association of America, is separate from the PGA Tour. They're not the same thing.
Very separate. Yeah.
Yeah, very separate. And a lot of people don't understand that. No. They just meld it all together.
And you understand why. It's very,
of course.
But so I think that's one of the things we need to do is tell our story a bit better, and get that messaging out there.
Yeah. And it's like I'm always, because I'm a golf fan too, I'm always trying to figure out how, when, I watch a lot of professional golf and how, like, I can go and watch highlights for the tournament that's happening this weekend, the Truist, I guess it's called. Is that what it's called?
I think so.
Something like that. and I'm seeing all these names that I've never seen before.
More and more often, yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And you go, and my wife's going, never seen that one. Who's that? I went, well, I don't know. Well, you watch golf all the time. No, I've never looked them, that kind of thing. And how that even works. How that, like how you get into those tournaments. Like because what happened, I know I'm going off on a tangent here, but what it was we're talking about Bryson DeChambeau and what he's going to do. And, he's basically saying, I'll do what I'm going to do. And he can and there's such a thing with PGA events that there's sponsors exemptions. If you're running, like if you're a sponsor of a tournament, who'd be one of the guys that you'd give a sponsor's exemption to because he's going to bring eyeballs to the tournament for sure. Yeah. Exactly.
Yeah, he knows he could leverage that.
Oh yeah,
at least for a while.
For sure,
definitely.
And so you sit there and go, there's never been more opportunity yet in the golf business for to create content, to do whatever it is around that the game of golf and to play professional golf, but it's so tight at the top on the PGA that it's just like, how do you get there's 100 spots.
It's tough. It is so tough. Like you were just kind of alluding to, we can look at a leaderboard, not know half those names.
Yeah.
And they're going to be some of the best players in the world.
Yeah.
But because they just didn't have that one opportunity, didn't crack through, didn't make that one putt when it mattered, they might never cross our awareness. Yet they're a tenth of a shot worse, so to speak,
Exactly.
than the ones we do. Yeah.
And it's crazy. And I'm good. This will segue into a little short plug for Chris Crisologo, because Chris was just down in
Great golfer.
yeah, great golfer. He was just down in Oregon, U.S. Open qualifying. He made it to the next level, and he phoned me from the airport. He was so excited. It was hilarious. I was so happy for him. But it was a 2 for 5 guys all teeing off for two spots.
Okay.
Yeah, it was a playoff.
Yep.
First guy birdied it, left the 4 of them, and he holed out on the second hole from 150 and from a drop area. Game over.
Awesome.
Yeah. I was like, good for you.
Yeah.
Because I don't even know where I said, where's the next qualifier? He goes, I don't know and really don't care about that right now.
I'm not figuring that out right now.
Exactly.
Yeah, exactly. That's a tomorrow problem.
That's a tomorrow problem. So good for him. Shout out to Chris. That's
awesome.
Fantastic. Good for him. So back to your role and what's happening here with golf in the province of British Columbia. You went through your roots, where you jumped around the province. But like, what age did you get was a golf club put in your hand?
I think like 11-ish. 11-ish? It was kind of when it was first kind of introduced to me. I mean, before that, I would have been aware my dad went out golfing in the morning sometimes. Usually got back home by the time we were waking up. Kind of anyways. So, it was kind of introduced by, I feel like grade 5, grade 6 kind of thing. Started to watch a little bit as I got playing then, but it wasn't really an everyday thing or a constant thing until, like I say, kind of 16 or thereabouts, where it kind of became the main one. And
you were obviously playing other sports. You can't.
Yeah, basketball was a kind of big one for me. I was a big tennis player when I was kind of even younger, and just like sports in general. So I was a kind of a general sports fan, and to try everything a little bit once. Were you like, how competitive of a golfer were you when you were young? Not very. Like I played some junior tour in those last couple of years, but almost as more of an introduction to it. I mean, I didn't, I guess, I don't know if you call me a late bloomer, or was a bit of a, I probably only kind of became a scratch golfer right before I actually played on the SFU team, which was maybe kind of the minimum level. So I think I progressed, we were playing at SFU and then even as turning professional and playing our local tour. I mean, we have actually some great playing opportunities here to develop your game. And the VGT was just kind of starting after I kind of turned right around that time. So Fraser and I have worked together on a bunch of different tournaments and initiatives there. Shout out to him for creating something that did what his goal was to actually develop a player. So I think that's very, very cool.
That's
as well.
Awesome.
So BC's had a very vibrant scene, a pretty healthy golf scene, and so if you want to throw yourself in and learn to play tournaments a little bit, you can do that. And I think the only way to get better at them is to keep playing more.
You got to play. You got to play.
You do.
So you finish up at SFU, and you decided that you wanted to give the pro thing, or were you?
I turned pro while I was at SFU.
Okay.
I was offered a job. I was offered one of the professional positions at Richmond Country Club, and so took that, and thought. At that point, that was kind of when I decided, I do want this to be, my career, or at least for the first while. I enjoyed teaching, so got to do a bunch of that. Like I said, I enjoyed playing tournaments, and I just enjoyed service. Kind of the country club service and the private club membership dynamic was a fun one. And so had a great bunch of years at Richmond Country Club in that. I had a lot of fun at Vancouver Golf Club as well. So I highly recommend it.
It's the thing is that if you like, if you enjoy something and you can make your living around that enjoyment, it's not really like it's work.
I think it's I know we've said that and you hear people say it, but at the same time I'm not sure enough people pursue it or live that or maybe think it's just nice words, but they're stuck in a certain reality.
Yeah. And it is, like I look back on, my golfing career started when I was 8 years old, but I grew up on the prairies and never, like, growing up playing baseball, hockey, a little bit of football, hell, even curling, which,
in the prairies, sure.
Yeah. Boring as shit. But the thing is that I never, like, golf was something that I was extremely fortunate because of accessibility. Got to ride, I could ride my bike to the golf course. It was.
Yeah. The same, I could walk to mine. So in Revelstoke, same kind of thing. I do think that's
That's a
factor.
it's a big thing, and it's a reoccurring theme that comes up every time I talk to someone sitting in that chair is accessibility. And because at the end of the day, that's how you're going to grow the game is through the young people coming up. And how do you ensure that accessibility, which is difficult, especially here in the Lower Mainland, because golf's not a cheap sport to play.
Yep.
You know?
And I'll stay everywhere. You know, if you project kind of longer terms, real estate everywhere is going to go up, you know, for the most part as a general rule. So accessibility is going to be tougher and tougher. We even saw the dynamic with COVID where golf courses got busy. One of the first victims, I'll say, is juniors. You know, they had less access because, hey, you know, I can sell Steve and Mark a rate at full pop.
Yep.
I'm going to give a junior rate. Yeah, sorry. You know, so so even, you know, experiences like that kind of do impact some of the grow the game initiatives and the work there. However, another dynamic at play is the rise of indoor facilities.
Yeah, sim
know,
golf.
And at the same time, that's, you know, going to be more and more prominent as we go forward, just as outdoor ones become more and more expensive and you know, like.
And that technology is going to get better. It's going to get
for sure. Actually, you know, I remember my dad was in the banking industry as a commercial lender, actually. So back in Prince Rupert, I remember in the 90s seeing a golf simulator, but I'm remembering what that experience was like compared to what it is now. You know, when you go into a nice facility with, you know, proper launch monitors and full technology there, it's not, you know, the same experience at all. But it is there now, you know, and it is, and it's going to continue to get more and more, let's say, familiar, you know, kind of for everyone using it, more and more realistic. And I think what we're going to see is kind of an explosion of participation on that, just because of how it removes so many barriers to entry. You know, we don't have to be in the same place at the same time, and we can still compete. Yeah, that's kind of cool. I think, and so
you don't have to fight the environment. Like that is for me.
Yeah,
like going in, like just like the simple equation about getting better at golf is reps, right? Is you know,
there's a time investment for sure.
Exactly.
You can't get around it. Yeah.
Exactly. And, you know, if it's cold and rain and windy, you certainly don't want to go to the driving range at Hazelmere and hit rocks. You know, it's much nicer being in like House of Golf or you name that sim. And you're going, it's nice and warm in here. There's nice music playing.
And we're in Vancouver. You know, we're here where you could argue that you can, you know, you can find it 12 months a year if you want. Yeah. You know, the rest of the country, even more so, you know, going to be able to, I think, take advantage of the, you know, if you want to call it a whole new platform. It's exciting to see where that's going to go. I do think golf, only so many new golf courses going to be built, you know, kind of going forward, especially kind of in Canada and, you know, and in BC. But so the growth of game does have to come from some other areas. You know, it can't just be more supply on the golf course side. And
one of the interesting things or things that I look at is organizations which really focus and because I have a large background in hockey, and like hockey is an extremely expensive sport. There are no there's
my kid's a goalie, so I know.
Okay. Good luck.
Yeah.
How old?
It's a separate podcast.
How old?
He's 15.
Oh, perfect. Yeah. And so it's extremely expensive. Yeah. And what's happened is that there's no association hockey anymore. It's all club hockey is what's happened. And that started probably around 20 years ago. And what ended up happening is that if there was a good player from an association, everybody would chip in and make sure that kid. But golf is unique because it's a one person thing. And I don't like, until you're a hockey parent, you don't understand, which you are now, the sacrifices that are required, because there are sacrifices. Sure. They're largely financial and time, and that are required to get to that next level. Golf is a whole nother level of that, and the ability, like, you know, you've got. Like I had, you know, my son played at a high level of hockey, but he had his own personal coach. He had a skating coach, shooting coach, all those kinds of things. But in golf, at such a young age, there's a lot of, you know, I've played rounds of golf where the parent has been walking along the side talking to the kid who's playing in the earpiece and gone, wow, and the kid's 15 and I going, that can't be fun. No. Like that's not fun. But, you know, and also I've played golf where the coach is actually, you know, and they're not doing it for nothing. They're being paid. So I look at it and go, the barrier to entry, is it becoming astronomical? And what can be done to, and I'm not saying to bring the barrier to entry down, but to get more grassroots young involvement in the game. And that's a question I'll put to you and maybe to the association, and what kind of initiatives they're looking at doing or they're involved in.
I mean, and grow the game is I don't want to call it a buzzword, in a derogatory sense or anything like that, but we've been using it for a long time. And I don't, as a sport, while we've kind of recognized we've needed to do it, I don't think we've done a great job of doing it. The PGA BC, we've had a junior golf week, for quite a while. We've been lucky to partner with the Canucks, and we're doing that again this year. We're actually expanding it to Junior Golf Month just to offer more facilities, more time. So this is actually a program that is meant to do exactly that. It's meant to introduce juniors to golf for the first time, with fun atmosphere, with some of the Canucks branding. Finn shows up sometimes and stuff like that. And that's just a way that we want to expand, the footprint, so to speak, introduce more juniors to golf. This kind of program isn't meant for the 14-year-old who's already an 8 handicap kind of thing. Nope. It's the one who's, putting their clubs in the hands the first time. And so we've seen a lot of success with that program, both in terms of just its attendance, but then how many of those students go on to continue with golf. So we're actually using a similar model with some of our other Grow the Game initiatives. We have a women's golf celebration. And so this year we are kind of adopting a similar model where we're going to be able to communicate and subsidize these lessons so that women can sign up for a very low pressure, fun introductory golf lesson. And women's golf is an area that needs support to grow. I mean, if you look at the numbers breakdown, if you want to talk about a 51% of the population, and even the best, most generous estimates put it at maybe 25% of golf. I can tell you our association is only about 8% of members are, women golf professionals. And so that's an area that, no matter what other sub-solutions we want to have, we've got to get more women members as professionals in our industry for representation, for, making the key decisions that way. So no matter how, much attention we put to some of the other initiatives and ideas there, if we aren't, growing our own membership, we don't feel it's only going to be so impactful. So anyway, growing our membership demographics, becoming more diverse, talking about adding more minority group participation. Recently, the association's done a great job in implementing EDGA into our playing ability test. So for all abilities. So there's a variety of different disabilities that you can have, whether it's physical disability with your leg. It could be I'm going to use improper terms, different neurodiverse afflictions as well, where you just get very similar to having 2 shots added if you're a senior for our playing ability test. There's different shots added for different disabilities. So it's opened up the golf profession or golf professional job to those that have physical disabilities. So want to keep on that trend, looking at how to expand.
What's it called?
EDGA is the association. Yeah, forgive me.
Okay. If you just say the acronym, we can.
Yeah, EDGA.
Okay.
EDGA is the association that the PGA of Canada's kind of learned from in order to implement that into. So, want to look at similar ways to kind of keep expanding the inclusivity of golf, because that's another, again, you can call it a buzzword. It still is, predominantly white, predominantly men, and predominantly wealthy. Yeah. And so those are all 3 categories we really have to. They aren't going to change on their own, and they aren't going to change, quickly. So we need to dedicate effort.
COVID kind of whacked that a little bit on its head, because it was the one sport, the one thing that you could do on the social distancing thing. But at the same time, and I'm going to sound hoity-toity when I say this, and I don't want to say riffraff, but I will say riffraff because a lot of people became involved in golf that didn't necessarily, and I'm not saying I'm an etiquette junkie.
Yeah.
I'm not. Yep. But there are certain things that are sacrosanct, that there's just, you know what I mean? Like it's like you don't, when the elevator comes down to the ground, you let the people get off the elevator before you get on, right? If somebody leaves their club, you pick it up and you take it with, because eventually they're going to come looking for that club, and you give it. That's just, I don't know who taught me that, but I just know that, right?
Yeah, and those are thing, we were on the golf course yesterday with a newer golfer in our group, and you notice how many things that are just maybe automatic to experienced golfers that aren't to new golfers. But that's a big barrier to entry, fear of etiquette or fear of violating, the etiquette of golf. What if I stand in the wrong spot? Am I not going to get invited back or all those kinds of things? And so it's a difficult balance, isn't it? And, when you want to be inclusive and invite people in, you can't say not like that too often, or else they'll just go, okay, cool.
That's right. I'm out.
I'll go away. No problem. So, I do think that, a private club can have a very different standard than a public course that wants to target, beginners and be more welcoming. And we do see that, we see a variety in operations. We're going to go to we have a tournament of champions coming up. We'll go to Black Mountain in Kelowna, and they're kind of famously known for their vibe. They play blast music from the clubhouse kind of all day long. They've got some real fun, celebrations that they do around the club. So, whereas if you go to, a typical private club, you're not going to see that. Sure, take your pick. And for very good reason. Right? It totally makes sense that each place is going to, land on its own identity. But as an industry, it's going to be important that we do have some places to grab, to let the riffraff in, to be perfectly honest, to let them kind of learn and grow a little bit and go, oh, yeah, you know what, golf is great. I want to attach, or I want to stick with it for a longer time. Sure, I can tweak a few of these habits and, to expand where I can go and play as well and things like that.
Well, I use as an example Matt Paulsenberg with his little pitch and putt 9-hole that he's got up at Clayton Heights there.
I know that guy.
You know Matt, and he gets, like he said, I talk to him on a somewhat regular basis, and he gets a group of 8 or 9-year-old boys coming out. It's a hockey team coming out. Well, you can imagine what they're like, okay? But he said, I get goosebumps because I encourage them, just go and play. The golf course is yours.
Yep.
Okay, I'll stop by and show you stuff, but I want you to get accustomed to it. And then slowly, it's interesting how they start to pick up things that you shouldn't do, that kind of stuff. Now, he said, you've got to be able to put up with a lot of screaming. It's like having a bunch of 8 or 9 or 10-year-olds at the bowling alley.
It's as you can imagine.
Exactly,
for sure.
Exactly. But he said, at least I have a venue for them to be able to do that.
Right.
Okay, because they couldn't go out to Morgan Creek and do that.
Exactly.
You know what I mean?
Yep.
So I'm introducing them, and that makes, that's what I want to do. I want, he does the same thing. We talk about women's golf. One of the barriers to entry with women's golf is it's being afraid to be judged.
Totally.
Right.
Well, that's another often at the risk of giving Mr. Paulsenberg too much credit. That's another one he does out of the backyard there that I've been able to help out with a couple of times is some of his women's clinics.
Yeah.
And I'll again use the vibe term. They show up half an hour early. There's some drinks, some appetizers, some music kind of going there. It's just a great area to kind of sit and hang around. If they want to hit a couple of golf shots while that's going on, they more than welcome to. Then we have the hour of actual instruction where they go in and can learn and hit some different shots, and then they can relax again afterwards.
And then if you're lucky, Matt might put a dress on.
Lucky? I don't know how lucky that would be. But yeah,
I see that. He's funny.
I make some jokes, but you're gonna have to edit them out, or I won't.
That's all right. But anyway, in all seriousness, that is, making it accessible. And things have changed so dramatically. Like I moved out here in the the early 90s, and I was fortunate to live right across the street from Northview.
Cool.
And stupid enough to put a real putting green in my backyard.
Oh, there you go.
Yeah. Idiot. Learned a lot of what you shouldn't do, and all kinds of weeds and blight and that kind of stuff that I didn't need to know. But the thing is that at that time you could just go to Northview and putt.
Right.
You didn't have to. Now it's locked down.
Sure.
You know what I mean? Like it's changed dramatically because obviously people were taking advantage of it. And I'm not to shit all over Northview, but the vibe that's there now, it's not, for me, it wasn't conducive to me wanting to come back, because as soon as I'm done my round, you're trying to, wrestle me off my golf cart and take my stuff away and all that kind of stuff. Like I just dropped, a couple of $100 here. I'm not, just leave me alone. I'll get my stuff. Never mind the fact that I have to, they've got the bullards there. You can't take the golf cart out into the parking lot. And maybe I'm getting trivial here with some of the stuff, but, pining for yesteryear. But
Yeah.
I look at it. And,
I do that a lot too.
Yeah. And it's the same thing. I say the same thing with when I golf with my son and he's got the music playing.
Yeah.
Okay. If you just want to hear it, that's cool. Okay. But I don't want to hear it. Okay. So if you just play it loud enough so that you could hear it, I guess.
Yeah.
But I'm still not that guy.
Yeah.
And
that's one that, as a golfer in the community, expand that to the next group, kind of mean. And so like, I like the idea of music on the golf course as long as it's at a level that's not bothering anybody else. Because I mean, if that person in the next fairway doesn't like it, well, then, that should be respected, I still think. And, so.
Yeah. It is like we've come a long way, and I'm not a Luddite. Well, maybe I am a Luddite, but I'm not saying no to that.
Right.
But I'm just be respectful.
Yeah, absolutely.
But I
sometimes that might mean you don't get what you want, which is,
that's right. That's
sometimes nowadays we're almost programmed to chase that too hard, I think. And sometimes it's like, no, because of the other person.
Yeah. Why am I getting so wound up about this?
Just relax.
Just relax. Exactly.
You'll golf better anyways if you're relaxed.
That's right.
So,
That's right. Why get into it? But the interesting thing though is that I don't I've been around for a long time, for quite a while, and plan on being around for a while longer. And I think that the game is it's at a point where there's so many directions it can go. Mm-hmm. I'd say the opportunities they're not finite, they're infinite. There's just so many things with the advent, obviously, of social media, but YouTube golf, leagues, like nobody, live is, obviously going to go away. Yeah. But what does that mean?
Right.
I think that there's a number of possibilities and opportunities. And I think it would be like, and I think being in your position with the, PGA of BC, that's an exciting time.
Sure. It is. Yeah. I mean, there is, like you kind of say, a lot of different directions, that we can go to. Simulator golf is in virtual competitions, I think is an interesting one. We're seeing TGL, mm-hmm. Tiger and Rory's kind of project there, which had a bit of a different take on team golf, with its opportunity, kind of as opposed to live. I think there's an interesting differentiation in those disruptors,
mm-hmm.
kind of there. And so, I think what we're seeing too are now some of the commercial enterprises in golf are looking at those and going, oh, we can maybe build a business around a bit of a different concept as mm-hmm. well. And so I think our landscape's going to be an interesting one, mm-hmm. Over a number of years in terms of how the businesses evolve, the offerings, do evolve, because on the one hand, it is popular. It's got, a lot of momentum, but these outside pressures are still there, in mm-hmm. terms of expensive real estate and even just increased pressure for municipalities for green space usage mm-hmm. and things like that too, so something could be commercially viable and but still might not get through, government approvals and things like mm-hmm. that. So yeah, lots of layers and like you say, a lot of interesting potential directions to go in. So
I want to go into a little bit of a deep dive on what your role as executive director, and and we could start off with like day-to-day responsibilities kind
sure.
of thing. What does that entail?
So I mean, it can differ depending on what's coming up. Mm-hmm. At an operational level, we'll have events coming up, tournaments and things like that. So we have, logistical, we got to do planning for the event itself. Whether that's, doing the draw or the physical tournament setup things like we will for upcoming events. Often involved with an average day is probably going to involve some partner discussions, reaching out to some of our partners, sponsors, whether that's with initiatives that are going on or upcoming events or proposals and plans and things like that as well. Big part of my job is working with our board of directors. So of course, we, as a member-funded not-for-profit association, we're represented by 12 individuals, board of mm-hmm. directors that are elected by our members. So I update them every month, and we have 4 official meetings a year where we talk about strategy, just planning. Even we been using a lot of feedback surveys the last couple of years. So we'll, go through those to look at, tweaks and plans and things like that. My job also requires me to interface with the national office. So we, again, are a national association. And so, BC's always viewed itself as a bit of a leader in many areas out here. Year-round golf season, you could probably point to a number of reasons why that is. So that's been very, I think, helpful to my role here, is having some of that connection at the national office to try and help steer some of that direction and give them feedback on what works, what doesn't work. As we're the boots on the ground, so to speak, in that we're here, kind of right in front of the members. So. But I also like to get out and be in front of our members. I kind of take a bit of a similar approach as I did as a general manager of a private club, in that I've got members, 800 members or so. And so ultimately, giving them value for their dues is kind of my job. If you're boil it down to one, singular thing, it's making sure that they see value to their membership of the association. And so whether that just be from the education that we put on, develop professional development, every one of our members has different sets of priorities. And so we take those in collectively and try and put on the best offerings for each year.
What about staffing? How many staff do you have?
So we got our office team is four. There's 4 of us in there. We use some other referees, that help us out with events and things like that. But again, I've got a board of directors and with some committees. Okay. And so we kind of leverage those to, I don't mind kind of making a statement here, is I come from both perspectives. I've shared this with a lot of people that, reporting to a board of golf pros about golf pro specific business is a little different dynamic than reporting to a board of a dentist, a construction worker, like an accountant about their hobby necessarily, not necessarily their business and their livelihood. It is a different dynamic. And so this is one where there's a lot less of, let's say, onboarding and explaining stuff to committees, because they already kind of know or get, what the topic is. It really, you bear down to the strategy and kind of get quicker down to the brass tacks, so to speak. So it's both, I think, a very healthy, kind of relationship, but a effective one as well. So I really do enjoy that dynamic. So
you were saying you spend the majority of your time, obviously, it's membership support, I would suggest, right? Yep. Because you are responsible to the members. For sure. But you also and advocacy, making sure that you do you have, is there a relationship with is there a provincial authority that oversees the sport of golf? I don't even know. Well,
I mean, we would oversee the professional side of it. BC Golf, Matt Steinbat's the CEO there, a former teammate of mine at SFU. They essentially have the amateur body purview, which would be larger just in terms of number of people. So those would be your 2 key stakeholders. We do have an allied golf association, AGA BC, formed from the 7, let's say, most prominent golf industry involved. So the golf club managers are in there, Golf Course Owners Association, superintendents. There's a golf and marketing as well. So, so that's a body that is as it currently sits, is a bit acts kind of reactionary. If something comes up, let's say water issues, which, knock on wood, those might be trending to come up this year. We've used that body in the past to help navigate some of those. As one example, you talk about advocacy. A bunch of years ago, we were given a directive from when water restrictions were coming in that said, okay, here's when you're allowed to water and here's how much. And we kind of went, whoa. How about leave it up to the experts to figure out when to do it? Because your recommendation actually is pretty inefficient. Just tell us how much to water to use, and then here we'll show you better results with less usage. So we did that and we're successful, actually, in kind of navigating that. So the way that those water restrictions kind of were handed down have been tweaked, or at least certain municipalities. There was a similar topic with golf cart licensing in the past and stuff like that. So anyway, as a group, we kind of get together collectively to address certain issues and things like that if they come up and are going to affect
and try to address them in a common sense way.
Yeah, absolutely. With that is going to not sacrifice anything, so to speak.
Okay, so sort of segue here into leadership and strategy. You've been in the position when you stepped into the role it was 3 years ago. Yep. What were your, I guess, big priorities when you stepped in because you have ideas, right? You have preconceived notions. And then once you get into the role, sometimes those have to be tweaked a little bit because it isn't necessarily what you think it is.
Yeah, actually, that's a very good way of putting it. So you take all your ideas, which even as a director, I was a director with the captain, was involved in setting the tournament program and things like that. So, but even then, your ideas are kind of limited, or at least the scope is somewhat limited. So when you get into this seat, you go, hey, that was a good idea, except I got to run it through this lens over here, and that no longer means it probably won't go that way because whatever the partner has a different idea or whatever it might be. Okay, well, back to the drawing board, and then you try and revise that. So actually very much enjoy that part of the process, putting the puzzle together. It's kind of the phrase I give all the time. And that's the same kind of approach because I just referenced all of our committee members and board of directors. They got great ideas too. And so that is kind of my job, is to put the puzzle together. It's not necessarily to, there's no singular magical solution that was decided upon at the start, and it's just keep executing that. You got to check in with things pretty regularly, evolve. We've had some things that seemed like great ideas, and we go down the road a little bit and go, oh, actually, you know what? Yeah, we found a much better evolution, changing track to it. So but one of the first things myself that I wanted to do was just kind of establish the overall strategic direction and say, okay, because we have a bunch of ideas. We got a lot of really good ideas. Let's kind of put them all into a framework that makes sense, where this idea isn't cannibalizing this idea over here and things like that. And so that was kind of my first assignment, was putting a collective strategic plan together. And now as of right now, we're actually doing it at the national level, revising their next 3-year strategic plan. So very shortly, once that's established, we'll kind of then go back into our own operational plan and go, okay, great. How can we tweak what we're doing there to satisfy the larger goal?
Mm-hmm. Okay, yeah. Cool. So, so and this is I don't know how to put this. When you're dealing with the members, and you cannot answer this question if you choose not to.
Sure.
Because everyone, like in golf, your stature kind of can be tied to your ability on the golf course.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, fair.
I think you know where I'm going with this. Yeah. And I'm talking about managing egos. Because you can be you can be a member of the BC PGA, and you could have played on the Corn Ferry Tour for 5 years. Right. Yeah. And because I played on, and I'm not saying that this has been said. It's just that because I played on the Corn Ferry, or I played on the PGA, or played in a couple of RBCs, my opinion means more than yours does.
Yeah.
And that's just a roundabout way of saying, ego sometimes can get in the way of things. Does that ever, now you may choose and say, you know what, Stephen, I don't want to answer that question.
Well, I mean, short answer, ego comes into play all the time. Whether it's golf, whether it's, anything else, I think it's just managing people and navigating people. You're going to deal with that. And maybe given the fact that we are, or at least our leaders, our board of directors are democratically elected, they're put into that position by our members, at large, just going to vote. So at least they've been selected. So not that our members are saying that those opinions matter more, but they are saying, yep, I don't mind that person representing my, my opinions out there. So, so that helps negate some of the, I've always been a fan of if someone keeps coming to me with ideas and insisting and stuff, it's like, I have a pathway for you to volunteer to sit on that committee. That makes so kind of put your money where your mouth is, so to speak. And sometimes there's ones where it's like, hey, you know what? You're absolutely right. That's a great, kind of point. We'll figure it out. We'll take that back and tweak things too. So always encourage feedback. That is one where if it's not good feedback, you can not use it and ignore it. Mm-hmm. And if it is good feedback, great. That's an opportunity.
Good answer, Mark.
Yeah. I got great members, Steve.
Well, no, listen. I'll tell you this. Since we've been doing this podcast, one of the things that I found out is that we haven't had like everyone that's involved in the game of golf, great character, tied together. You might debate that.
I think we're pretty lucky as a sport, and that could just be that I've been lucky in my.
I don't think so. I think it's just I look at it and everyone when I grew up, all the really good players that I was around were good people.
Yeah.
I don't know if there was a correlation or there was never really where you'd say, well, that guy's an asshole.
Yeah, I knew a couple, but not many.
Yeah, they don't stand out.
No.
There's more good than bad.
Well, and even just yesterday, we were at a fundraiser for the BC Golf Museum out at Colchina, and so the people in there are there to support kind of golf. So that again, that's a bit of a biased kind of room. But kind of to your point, I mean, they are there just for support, for blind support of the sport itself. Whether they've been successful in their career, been an amateur golfer, or just kind of a club member that wants to support it. All the people I've come across, over those 30 years or so, it seems like disproportionately we do have pretty good people there, and that could just be. I mean, I don't mind saying that compensation in the golf industry is not, as luxurious as it is in many others. So there's a somewhat of a personal sacrifice that, a lot of people make, but just for that passion, they want to be connected to golf. So they are willing to, maybe do it for less than they might if they were in a different industry. So, whether that's the filter that ends up with the people that we get or not, I agree that we do.
So want to get back sort of to your career and walking through your earlier roles, the earlier roles you had, and then into being the executive director of the association. Was that an ultimate goal ever to be, or was it just kind of like through happenstance? It happened,
Yeah, it wasn't, to be honest. Okay. Not at all. It's funny. Again, even though I was a volunteer and has been a director for a couple of years before becoming the executive director, volunteered on committees going, I don't know how far back, but no, actually never did. Look at that seat or even that pathway as kind of as an option. It was only when, I don't know if you want to call it during COVID, as things started to really, kind of change with the entire industry. And that's when I started, I guess, to open up the opportunities in my own mind, because before that, I had a very straight progression, and a pretty quick one too. So, from assistant pro, head pro, general manager at the private clubs. So there wasn't a lot of kind of outside consideration, kind of at that point. And only then when, I guess, the world was kind of getting turned upside down, you look at things through a little bit of a different lens. And I always like to say that the big picture equation, of all of life is kind of the ultimate one, not just the career part of the equation. And so, then that just kind of was a bit of a change in perspective, and that it started to be, okay, well, consider everything at that point. And so, then a very interesting opportunity. It came up with Sagebrush. And so kind of, even though that was outside the pathway maybe, or, I kind of perceived it to be, because it was a very different, different role and project. And then same thing when the executive director kind of role came on, it was a different one. I'll be perfectly honest, I had at one point considered just kind of sports admin or golf admin. Never within my own association. Kind of funny enough, even though again I was like a volunteer there, I'd always kind of thought I was just going to continue to be a volunteer, and that was what I wanted to kind of do there. And only when the opportunity kind of came up did I go, oh, actually, that could be, it's good work, pretty cool. That could be fun, yeah. So
those usually tend to be the best ones.
Perhaps, right? Yeah.
I can speak directly from a career that I've been in the media business since like 1989.
Yeah.
And just like, did I have grand designs? No. Like it just.
Yeah. I mean, I did a new member orientation for some of our new members that just passed that PAT earlier this week, as a matter of fact. And I even kind of said, hey, look at your first couple of years like you would maybe at university, where they mandate that you take a wide range of classes, and you only kind of specialize as you get a little more in. Same kind of idea here. You may not think you like teaching or coaching, but once you do a little bit of it, hey, maybe that's something scratches your itch, and away you go. You might love tournament organization or whatever it might be. So yeah, give yourself that wide kind of variety of experience. And like you say, you don't know where. Yeah, you don't know where it's in 3 years what's going to feel like the best idea.
Yeah, and there's your personal philosophy. Talk a little bit about this. In regards to the way you look at the game and the way the association looks at the game. You don't, like, you're member driven to a large extent. So you have to reflect, like I always say, people ask me to describe a newspaper in a market. And I always say, well, it reflects the community that it serves.
Sure. Yep.
Because I really do believe that if it doesn't, it won't survive.
Yeah.
And like any kind, like an organization that relies on membership to sustain itself,
Right.
you better reflect what the membership wants. Otherwise,
How long?
how long exactly? You're not going to be around for.
Makes sense.
Exactly. But your your personal philosophy of it's not just golf, it's life and in general. How has that sort of melded with your role? Meaning, like, and that might, I don't think that's that much of an ambiguous question.
I think I know where you're going. So, I mean, I guess my kind of general life perspective that I'll kind of allude to or expand on is just to use collaboration that's available to you. And so, from the association standpoint, when we're looking at our strategic plan, we basically said, okay, what we as an office, as an association, need to do in order to achieve our ultimate goal is provide value either directly to the members, to our partners or sponsors, or to the golf industry at large. And if we do any of those things, we're adding to the pile. We're increasing overall value. If we're not, we may just be spinning our wheels or wasting resources. So anytime we do ideas come up and we're kind of bouncing them around and discussing them, they kind of get pushed through that lens. Is it going to add value to our members, add value to our partners or sponsors, or to the general golfing public? And if not, okay, then we'll shelf it for now or find a different way to kind of approach it. So I'm a big believer in having some kind of a grounded litmus test, something that you can bounce ideas off as, whether it's a mission statement or a vision statement or other organizational ethos, which we do have. Even from a personal standpoint, those would just be your personal values, and so I think it's very important to bounce those off of something, whether that is like your double check. I mean, It's very easy to run down the road and do the next step and do the next step and do the next step. And before you know it, you go, actually, I'm kind of far away from where I was trying to get to, just because I thought in the small scale that made sense. In the small scale that made sense. Stepping back and looking bigger picture, you go, oh no, I'm actually getting further away from where I wanted to.
So let's talk about the state of the golf industry in British Columbia. Okay. Where golf was. You've been in the business for what, 20 years?
30.
30.
Yeah, I mean, started when I was 16, basically, in the back shop. So
okay, so
it's a long time. No, don't worry, it's a long time.
But if you look back, how would you describe the state of golf in this province, comparatively speaking, to 10, 15, 20 years ago?
I mean, it's good. It is. So I'd say I might even compare it differently to 10 years ago and even 20 years ago or there. Not lost on any of us. COVID did a good job of bumping up attendance, participation again. But I think one of the indicators there that prove golf is healthy is that it hasn't recessed, or at least not very minor kind of downtrend after a very large uptrend. So that staying power I think is important and speaks to golf itself and its health and how people in the province perceive it. The fact that we see, and even if you just kind of focus on simulators or these kinds of businesses that are popping up, new golf businesses are popping up. So just from a commercial indicator, that seems pretty healthy there as well. And I mean, then it would be a little bit ignorant to not talk about the global golf landscape when you're talking about any regional golf landscape. You have to. The Tiger effect was a gigantically real thing. COVID obviously and all these others, and that's one right now where never mind the specifics of live golf and stuff like that, but golf is healthy there too. In terms of kind of the overall direction that it's going. I think it's got some really interesting opportunities itself. Kind of golf at the top level. Don't know what they're kind of going to do there, but I'd like to say they have some opportunity to, I think, even whether it's capture the existing attention that they've got or expand on it with, if this is a bit more of a consolidation opportunity with live going away. And so I think that could even further keep golf going, in the future. The challenges golf's going to have here, we've already kind of talked about them. Real estate in BC is a real thing, especially, Metro Vancouver area where the population is. So, new golf courses are going to be few and
when was
far
the last
between.
time a new golf course was built here?
I mean, Cabot Revelstoke should open up in another year or so. I'd be hard pressed to, I don't know, Pagoda Ridge was a dozen years ago now or more. So Yeah, great question. I'm not sure exactly where they are. So, but at the same time, participation is great. Here in BC, our membership keeps growing. That's another obviously indicator we use is if membership's going up, there's more demand for working golf professionals in the province, either at facilities, taking lessons, and things like that. Another layer though that I'll throw in like with real estate is AI. That's going to affect every industry, of course, golf included. So we got to kind of keep our eyes open about exactly what trends are going to shift and change going forward because of that as well.
There's the game too. The state of the game, I think, is phenomenal, which is interesting because we did have, we had an event here. We had the Air Canada Championship, the Greater Vancouver Open, whatever you want to call it, and we lost that. Yeah. Now, the last one we had was the women playing at Shaughnessy. I love that. Like I went and watched the women play. Like I love it. I love going to the driving range. I love that whole thing. I used to take the whole week off. And
it is a lot more than the TV experience.
Yeah.
If you can go and hang out at the range and
it is. And
listen to the shots.
That's right.
Yeah.
Hear the banter.
Yep.
But the interesting thing is that we lost that, but the game has continued to grow. And I just think that if we were to have an event here, how much more it would just like take off, because I remember being part of that initial groundswell of support because I was, I was a publisher of the newspaper in Surrey at that time, and it was crazy time. Like it was lots of fun.
Yeah.
It was really fun. It was lots of fun. And I think about that and go, geez, if we could get that, it would just almost provide more fuel to the growth of the game kind of thing. But that might be wishful thinking. It's,
well, I mean, you might be right, but, how that's going to happen, it might be the tougher question, the tougher puzzle to put together there.
Yeah.
I mean, because even if you talk about the PGA Tour, they're actually looking at reducing number of events.
Yeah.
Not expanding. So if if they're looking for expansion, you could make a good argument for, well, especially if the Canadian Open's going to kind of live in the Greater Toronto area.
Which it seems,
and I think that's not to be critical of it, but I'm sure the sponsors have a lot of influence in that decision there. It kind of makes some sense that a certain level, well, okay, have a Western one, that goes on the second one every year. But I don't, if there's no clear pathway there, it basically takes someone with purse strings to go, yeah, no, I'll fund it, I'll do it. And without that, it's going to be hard to get off the ground.
And they had the PGA Tour Americas at the Fortinet out at Morgan Creek.
Yep. So we will see that. I think we'll keep getting a lot of that in the rotating events. In the Canadian Women's Open, even the Men's Open from time to time as well. So we'll keep getting rotation of probably even some significant events. Back in the day, there used to be skins games, as well, and things like that. So I think we might see some of those. Kind of keep coming around. One that we even considered bringing back ourselves is the BC Open. So we actually own the BC Open property. That's our golf tournament, and we had this that was making a short story long, like I often do. That was actually one of the components of my initial strategic plan. Was, hey, here's an opportunity for us. We spent a couple of years actually discussing it at different levels of detail, and said, no, it's not going to work. It's not, or even to try it would be such a financial risk, or that's not what we're here to do. So we didn't think, even
explain that a little bit more. The BC Open,
so BC Open was just a prominent golf tournament, and in the past has winners from Dave Bauer on there, won that.
What was it? Part of a tour, or was it just
at different times? I believe it was. So I'm pretty sure it was part of, I think I want to say the Nike Tour, kind of back at the time when it was one of those. So the PGA Latin American Tour, kind of equivalent now. Canadian Tour, I believe at different times it was a part of that as well. I think the last one was held in 2003 or 2 or thereabouts. So it been a while there, but it was an opportunity. For us, it's a tournament of excellence. It was the best players. It was an open, so there was pros and amateurs in there alike. In theory, we thought there could be an opportunity to bring something like that back. Would that resonate with the public enough, and to give value back either to our members, to the general public, or to our partner sponsors, and kind of go into the exercise. We thought with everything else that's already out there, no, there wasn't enough guarantee there that that was going to be value, and so other bodies could be going through the same kind of decision processes and discussions and going, well, it might not work. It might be a bit risky for us to do that here. And so without a player like the PGA Tour, saying, "Yep, you know what, Vancouver's a good spot for this." That might be tough.
Mhm.
Yeah.
I was just thinking, I hadn't thought about the skins thing. Like the prize money is so astronomically high now. What would
What would the
What would
skins be?
skins-
God, $1 million a hole? Like,
Jesus.
yeah. What would you have to
Hey,
do to incent the top players to come out? I don't know.
that's crazy.
Yeah.
Hey, we're talking like that.
You have to give them equity or something. and
Own the golf course.
Yeah, own the company
Playing for
or
the golf
something.
course. That's crazy. But we talked a little bit about the current health of the game. Where the game is heading. Let's talk a little bit about that, like trends that excite you the most about the game in the direction that it's going.
I mean, two trends that we've already kind of talked about both a little bit. Indoor golf or simulated golf, I think is a very interesting one. For the main reason being, not even as a, I don't want to call it an alternative to outdoor golf, so to speak, but just almost as a new thing on its own. In that, again, if you and I have a bit of a grudge and we want to, beat each other, we can do that without being in the same place, even at the same time, potentially. I love the idea of putting on competitions for our members where someone from Port Hardy can play against someone from Tawasin, against someone from Prince Rupert and, Cranbrook at the same time, kind of thing, just because they're, using technology. Yeah. So I think there's a lot of really cool opportunities with competition and how that's going to go and expand. Another one that's in a very different avenue, but when we've talked about is the growth of inclusivity in golf. And this is one where, we have more of a responsibility ourselves. And so that's one where I think looking to the future to say, what does a healthy golf landscape look like? It's got to be, more diverse. So I'm looking forward to seeing that future where we've got, sometimes things just take a generational change, or they're easy to do over a generational change. And I wonder with golf if that's, what it will take. But I think we've got to be pretty forceful and active in the meantime to help it give its best chance to be that way. So,
well, golf is the interesting thing about golf is that when like I play as a single, I do, and the reason I play as a single is I like to meet people.
Sure. Yep.
And you never know who you're going to meet on the golf course, and I won't randomly pick somebody to go for a walk on Granville Street for 4.5 hours.
Right.
But playing
Mind
golf,
if I tell you for the next for the afternoon? Yeah.
no, you won't do that. But I've met so many interesting people over the years. Some who have become friends. It used to be when I would do that, a woman would be part of the group, and you'd be, I don't do that anymore.
Yeah, good.
Because they can play.
Oh yeah.
No, they can play, and they can play, and they're not. And I go, that's for me. I like that. Maybe that's not something I should be proud of, but I am proud of that because I've grown.
Yep.
As a human being, as a person, and gone, you know what?
Well, and further to that, I'd suggest as a sport, we've given more opportunities for women to become comfortable. So that you can, even if you need to justify it that way, you can do that and say, no, look, they know the etiquette, they know how to play. Whereas if we are exclusive, you never get in. How do you get in if we don't teach people how the etiquette and stuff like that? So, I mean, some through intention, some not through intention, and just through ignorance. We've been doing that for a long time in golf, and we have been reversing the course a little bit. We need to do still a better job even going forward.
And it, like anything else, it takes time.
Yep.
So in getting like, I want to touch on, there's some signature initiatives, some things that the BC PGA is involved in. Let's talk a little bit about those things.
Sure.
Okay. They're tangible programs, things that, and talk about them and how potentially our listeners or our viewers could get involved in them. Let's talk about those.
So two of the grow the game kind of initiatives that we have are two major ones, at least right now. And again, this is one area we are kind of investigating how we can expand and add some different groups to expand, the footprint of golf. I already kind of mentioned Junior Golf Month and our Women's Golf Celebration. These are both initiatives that we put on to expand who's aware of golf. And so on the junior side, we'll put out that information here shortly from our website where you can see what clinics are available in your area. Basically, kind of sign up to one that's close by.
What is your website?
PGABC.org.
Okay.
And then you can click on community. You can click on media. There's a bunch of actually great kind of links on there to get more information either for programs or for our if you want to follow us on Insta and things like that. You can do that. We're putting more and more content on YouTube these days as we do as well. But so the Junior Golf kind of Grow the Game initiative is one where it's, I want to say it's about a $25 fee. Very popular. We've got about 1,200 people, I think, on our mailing list for that. But this year, in expanding it, we should be able to meet demand more. We've had in the past, just couldn't get enough facilities to sign up just because of the limited duration that we had. So we've expanded that. Expect to get a bunch more facilities. So anyway, if you have a junior golfer who's new to the game or you're looking to introduce them, please have a look for the PGA of BC Junior Golf Month with Canucks clinics, and that'll be a great opportunity. Even before that, we'll see ones on the women's side. So again, kind of mentioned this earlier, in seeing how successful the junior one was to introducing new people to golf. We already had an existing women's program in place, but it was tweaked to kind of really emphasize the new beginners coming in and kind of learning for the first time. So that offer will be out there as well. And same thing, you should be able to find a facility that's fairly close and convenient and sign up for that.
Okay.
So we're very, and that one actually we've partnered with Adidas on the women's golf celebration as well, and we have some other incentives for facilities to put on events and stuff like that. So even though we're above these clinics, you might see some other women's golf events, like Nine and Dine and things like that out there.
Okay. We
have a couple of charitable initiatives that we're very proud of. The Golfathon for ALS has been on for a while now. I think we've over 15 years. I think last year was the year we crested $3 million total raised by our members and their supporters directly for the ALS Society. So that is takes place in the summer. So mostly kind of it's kind of expanded as well in the last year or so. So kind of July and August.
What is that event?
The Golfathon is so our members go out and play golf as many holes in a day is kind of the concept, to essentially lend their muscles to those that can't use them on their own. So ALS is a very debilitating disease. So the funds raised from that, so people will pledge money in support, whether it's just a flat fee. Very common to pledge a certain number of dollars per holes played, or things like that. So that's the idea, is to draw attention to the cause itself, and then of course raise funds. And that's one where we've been involved for quite a while. I kind of like to single out Seymour Golf and Country Club for the amount they've raised in the years is significant. I mean, they've had years where alone they've done a couple $100,000, directly for ALS, and that is very, very impressive there. But these funds do go directly to providing resources for those who suffer from ALS. So anyway, our members are quite passionate about it. We don't have to even remind them. Like, we get asked more first about when it, is any changes this year, when is it happening, rather than us having to say, hey, don't forget to,
when is it happening,
to volunteer for this. July, August. Yeah, will be the bulk of it when that
and
takes
people
there.
could get information going to your website.
Yep. Yeah. PGABC.org.
Okay.
I'm going to say, if you click on community or click, on media, are going to be the two biggest, kind of links there for the general public. But in our community department, you'll see actually the two Grow the Game initiatives I mentioned there for juniors, for women. The ALS, the Golfathon for ALS, of course. And then just last year, we added a mental health initiative as well. So Brady Stead is a golf professional out at Ledgeview.
Great guy.
Great guy. Yeah. Great player as well. Fantastic junior coach. And he started this on his own, a teach-a-thon for mental health 2 years prior, raised money on his own. He just volunteered his time, said, yep, any funds that I make, I will just be giving to the CMHA, which he did. We had my directors are both very passionate about mental health and wanted to add another initiative to our association. And so this was kind of a nice fit. We reached out to Brady and just said, hey, we'd love to just expand what you're doing, just basically, lend our influence, so to speak, give the messaging out there more. So we kind of did this a little bit on the fly last year, so to speak. And so, but had a few dozen golf professionals who donated their time, raised money directly for that association. Again, we got to go to a luncheon just a couple of days ago to see where a lot of those funds go and how important this issue is. I mean, mental health is
yes,
very prominent. We're obviously kind of we hear about it a lot these days. So that's why it's kind of important for us not just to be aware of it, but to do something for it. And so we expect that to be a very popular one this year from our members as well, supporting it and being able to give funds directly back to their local chapter of CMHA.
Okay, and you have there's other initiatives that you've got. You talked about the women's golf, right? Yeah. And you've got your junior and community initiatives. You can all get all that information on your website. It's all under community. Yep.
Yeah, PGABC.org, and then go to community.
Okay.
As that information, kind of becomes up for each of the clinics, you find it all there.
Okay. And for golfers listening or watching, what's the one, I guess you can't have one, say they're all important.
Sure.
What's the one initiative that you'd like to see them pay the most attention to? All of them, or you don't have to answer that question.
Yeah, I mean, if I were to strategize it, I would say the mental health teach-a-thon this year, just because it's the newest.
Yeah.
It's the newest one. So, whereas the others already have some momentum, some inertia, behind them. So,
and Brady's a great guy.
Absolutely.
Yeah,
he is.
Okay. Now let's get to this is the segment that I enjoy the most. Is I'm going to ask you about the craziest thing that you've ever experienced on the golf course. We're getting close to wrapping it up here. Something that still, because if you play enough golf, you're eventually going to see something that
Stories for sure.
Yeah.
I mean, a memorable one for me, maybe whether you call it formative or just nostalgic, was we already mentioned Northview, here today. So I was there on Sunday when Mike Weir won the tournament. But I remember quite vividly actually, because he was ahead. I don't remember exactly how many groups ahead of the final group he was. Maybe he holed out on 14 or 15, something like that. Kind of going out, made another birdie. Was coming in with pretty sure a one-shot lead. Fred Funk was in the final group, who was the one trailing. I don't think we actually saw the tee shot. We're standing behind the 18th green fountains and everything kind of there. But I saw Fred walk up to where his ball was, I guess, in the rough. And I watched him bend down. He picked up some grass and he fired it back down to the ground, like aggravated, I presumed, with his lie. And I threw my hands up and I said, Weir's going to win. Because I was assuming that he was going to have to lay up. And sure enough, he did. He got there and he just laid up, didn't hold out his wedge shot from, kind of wherever that was. And so I think then that was the moment we knew for the first time. I don't remember how long at that point. The Canadian had won, and it was in Canada, and I mean it was
a huge deal.
It was pretty cool. So so my dad and I got to be there for for that. Yeah,
that's very cool. That's very cool. Now, quick favorite course in BC.
I've usually cheaped out and said give me like a convoluted answer. So I'll keep doing that here. I've always been super partial to the front nine in Revelstoke. Probably because I grew up there, but you can hit good shots there and score very well. If you don't, you won't. You can recover, you can hit, there's funds. Par 37, there's 3 par 5s, so it's, I always really enjoy playing that. Also love the back nine at the Vancouver Golf Club. Similar reasons. I love the big tall trees and I mean the kind of cathedral feeling out there. Sagebrush has got some amazing shots out there. That golf course. So when I was there, I said, you're going to be lucky enough to go out there today and hit some shots you might not have seen or played anywhere else. And then you throw on top of it, beautiful scenery, pretty unique experience. Capilano's views down into the city, that's a pretty special treat. Obviously being a private club, not everyone gets to experience that, but that's just from kind of an impactful view. I think that one's pretty special as well.
Well, very diplomatically presented.
There you go. Yeah,
there you go.
That's the idea.
So in wrapping things up, Mark, I'd like to. What are you doing on social media? Are you doing you've got social media, your website? Are you doing I think you do your own podcast.
So just
about that.
We have just started our own podcast. I think we're 5 episodes in, published now. Mr. Derek Orr from the island is doing our hosting duties there. So we bring on some of our members and very similar format to this. Let them tell their stories. They, as you kind of pointed out. Some golf people have some pretty good stories, and our guests are no exceptions there. We do have a presence on social media as well. Instagram is our main platform there, and we do have a few initiatives that fly through there. You can see our pros picks and stuff like that as tournaments are coming up. We ask our pros who they like in the upcoming tournament. We're going to have some what's in the bag features coming up as well and stuff like that. We find that the public actually resonate quite well with our tournament players and the programs, and they're curious to see what's happening at those events and stuff like that. So we do like to cover those. In fact, if you check out when the schedule is, you'll even see us live stream playoffs and stuff like that on there. So
okay, well, thank you, Mark, for coming. I really appreciate you coming. I'd like to thank riversidegolf.ca for sponsoring this podcast. Without Ken Poirier and his team, we would not be able to do this podcast. I would encourage people to subscribe, watch, listen. We're on Spotify, we're on YouTube, we're everywhere. We do shorts, and we're here to promote the game. We're here to promote organizations like the BC PGA, individuals like yourself. We're so grateful for you to come out, Mark. We appreciate you.
Yeah,
Thank you
appreciate
so
your support
much.
of the community.
Thank you.
Yeah, thanks, Steve. Cheers.